has been a couple weeks since the release of Nintendo Switch Sports, a game that, if you were going off social media for the past couple years, should have been a behemoth to say the least. But something has happened. This game that had everything going for it is now struggling to stay relevant in the ever-evolving beast that is social media. And I have a theory as to why that is. But to understand that, we're gonna need to look back at the original. Hey everyone, I'm RV Rocks, and I've always had a very nostalgic connection to the Wii Sports games. So much so that even back in the day, I used the Wii Sports medley from Smash Bros. As a personal theme song of sorts. Which, if you knew me when I made this, no you didn't. Wii Sports is a game that many people have come to love posthumously. Not because it was an amazing game, but because of what it represented. Wii Sports, for all of its strengths and weaknesses, was a product of its time. And its time was the era of novelty. The Wii was the gilded era of Nintendo. A lot of the games released during this period are games that wouldn't necessarily be accepted as quote-unquote good games had they released in another time, and a lot of the good games got stuck with gimmicks that dragged them that much further down. Motion controls forced onto the player without any substitution. Mini games where you're not really that in control of the movements your characters are performing. Games that only existed to prove that this gimmick wasn't a gimmick. And at the top of them all, the game that was probably defined most by its gimmicky motion controls, yet respected the most out of any of them. Wii Sports. Wii Sports, and by extension all of the Wii series games, are remarkably popular by today's standards. But there is a very big difference between popular and good. And that creates a large dichotomy when discussing the possibility of a remake. Because there's this game that everyone on the internet seems to love making memes over, this game that everyone on the internet seems to be reminiscing about, easily the most nostalgic game for people my age. It puts dollar signs in the eyes of the executives at Nintendo. But the renowned existence of Wii Sports isn't from its gameplay. It's from its identity. When the Wii first released, it was the new hotness. Because of these newfangled motion controls, everyone wanted to jump around and do all these different activities that they could probably do normally without actually doing them by using a Wiimote to simulate doing that exact thing. Wii Sports was the introduction to the Wii and this new wave of Nintendo. It was a lot of people's first console launch. Hell, it was my first console launch with a pack-in game so simple in execution that kids could spend literal days playing it and never get bored. And that is exactly my point. Wii Sports is celebrated so much online, more so because of the memories connected to it rather than the actual content the game provided. Wii Sports introduced Matt, and everyone remembers struggling against him. Wii Sports allowed you to full-on fight your family, developing god-tier strats in boxing to avoid doing dishes. Wii Sports was the reason that your mom had a Mii. It was truly special in that way. It was the one game that seemed to get everyone down to play some Wii, regardless of who they were. This lightning in a bottle moment appealed so profoundly to the casual market in a way that never really seemed to pop up again. So what happens when you try to remake that game? Well, everyone plays it for about a week and then swiftly forgets about it. Wii Sports Club is proof of that. But what happens when you remake certain elements of that game and morph them together with certain elements of its sequel with a slick new visual design to help appeal it to both its nostalgic older players and the new blood with their brand new Nintendo Switches? Well, everyone plays it for about a week and then swiftly forgets about it. Nintendo games as of recent have a history of quickly fading from public conscious relevancy post-release. But Nintendo Switch Sports seem to give titles like Mario Tennis Aces a run for their money in that particular speedrun. When it first released, people really loved this game, but it's been a minute since then and I rarely ever see anyone talk about it anymore. From the admittedly little bit that I have played personally, alongside word of mouth from friend of the channel, Steve Bowling of Good Vibes Gaming fame, there is nothing but positive comments. But it just doesn't contain that magic that I was going on about earlier. And while I could easily blame Switch Sports' lack of success on the fact that the original was a pack-in title, Nintendo's finish it later approach, the $40 price tag, the change from Mii's as the game's main mascot, or the frankly strange smattering of sports available in the game, there is one truth. And that is, removing this game, this concept of Nintendo Sports from its initial launch environment, doesn't do anyone anything. You can't divorce the fun of Wii Sports from the new and exciting technology developments of the time, because when you do, you get a product that rides entirely on nostalgia that won't hold up once that nostalgia has run out. There's an alternate timeline where this game was nostalgic or exciting, but truthfully, in its current state, it's neither. So why does Nintendo Switch Sports exist? Truthfully, I don't know. But it's quickly found itself in this niche of not interesting enough or bad enough to make a big deal about it. And if you ask me, that is more tragic than anything else. And if you think that my channel is awesome, then why don't you subscribe to RV Rocks and ring the bell, like this video, and comment your thoughts on Nintendo Switch Sports. Whether or not this game is a success, I think it warrants an interesting discussion on public perception of games versus the inherent value they bring. So please, genuinely, I encourage all takes on the matter either in my comments below or on Twitter at RVRocks. But before you do any of that, I have been RV Rocks, and thank you so much for watching. See ya!